welcome everyone. My name is Rashmi Narayan, and I'm here on behalf of the Valemount Senior Citizens Housing Society. My role here is project lead on behalf of the society to look at the new seniors facility. I just want to acknowledge we are on the traditional territory of the Sim First Nation. We are grateful. We had a meeting with them this morning and just talked about ideas, and and they also talked about elder care and ideas on development in this area. So we're grateful for that. We have some counselors here today, Pete Pearson, and earlier in the earlier session we had the mayor and councillor and some staff, and Sylvia's here as well, so it's nice to have you guys. We are gathering here in new times, and so we've been trying to be diligent about safety and health and distancing, and recognize you guys are taking a risk coming out today and hoping to, but public input is important as we move this project along, and so we wanted to make sure we have community input into the project. So, just want to introduce Olivia McMahon. She is leading, she's the the project lead on behalf of Macola Development Services. That's the housing consultant that we are working with. They will coordinate the work with us, the society, the design team, the builders, the funding agencies. And our design team is our group of 4 people. It's a neat collaborative, and we're passionate about community engagement, which I know a few of us want to be working with us. Shafraz Kaba from Edmonton, Shona Noyes, she lives in Kamloops, outside Kamloops. Doug Miller, he's a builder, and Tara McCashin, she's from Edmonton as well. So I'll pass it on to Shafraz.
Thank you, Rashmi. It's our pleasure to be here in Valemount for this workshop and to bring you along the journey for Valemount Cares and the Senior Citizens Housing Society's hopes and dreams for the first phase of a master plan. So we've been asked to help develop the master plan with your help. And that's what we're here to do today, is get your ideas and feedback on how this thing should unfold. So this afternoon, we want to tell you about the story so far. I know some of you have been engaged in this process for almost a year, starting with the idea that there's a need for seniors housing and a need for amenities to service that. And then COVID happened. So we want to share a little bit of what we've learned from that year-long engagement and gathering of information. And then we want to show you some ideas of what seniors housing we are inspired by. And then we're going to talk a little bit about priorities and get you to help us workshop through some of those ideas in the next 90 minutes. So it's going to seem a little fast and furious, but that's sort of how we like to work, because we want to gather as many ideas as we can, but we want to take the time with you to kind of suss out what are the must-haves versus what are the nice-to-haves, because there's always a limited budget, but way too many ideas. And we have learned this community is very passionate and very energetic about some of these ideas, so gathering them and workshopping through them will help us create a better idea of how to build something for the long term of this community. So if you can see this is what some of us look like without masks. So we have mouths and noses and faces. And unfortunately, we're trying to deal with the health and safety issues and standards. So for your benefit, we're trying to basically comply with all the health and safety regulations, including all of the posters on the wall, the arrows on the floors. So we're adapting to these new pandemic times. And but that doesn't really cramp our style too much. So we're here to have a little bit of fun with you too. So what we heard in the last a little while is really we need to build a sense of community. We need to work with creating a vibrant place that isn't just for seniors, but provides amenities for the greater community. And this morning we had some really great conversations from developing, garden suites as an idea for, seniors who might want to live with their families and have their loved ones closer, to ideas about the absolute essentials of a lift tub in certain units, because we need to provide that capacity to be able to give care to people who are less able themselves. And we want to make sure we start with an idea of independent living and then build a master plan to a more supportive or assisted and long-term care type of living. So we're starting with small steps and sort of what we've heard as the most pressing need. And we're going through sort of this funneling out of what are the amenities that are the most important for your community, and how do we enable those services to be built over a period of time, probably the next decade. All of this can't happen in the next year, as they said, unless you do a hell of a lot of bake sales, because we heard there's a bunch of amazing apple pie bakers in town. But we want to make sure we can enable and encourage and find the funding through BC Housing, CMHC, and actually other organizations that can make this dream a reality. So before we get to workshopping, we'll try and inspire you with some ideas. So some of them include creating more town center-like developments. This is in Hamilton, Ontario. It's a seniors residence that's multi-story, so this is a little bit bigger scale than what we would probably do in Valemount, but it's inspiring to us because of this sort of outdoor gathering space. We know from COVID that the outdoors are safer than the indoors, and the outdoors, especially in a setting like this, is something to take advantage of and have people out in fresh air, in sunlight, and take in all of that natural capital that you have in huge amounts here. We also want to take, ideas from your local context and environment. So even the session before this, we heard a lot about wood buildings, and there's going to be a local mill going to be opening up and using local resources and materials, and hopefully even lots of local labor. So we want to ensure we can build on those opportunities and actually help your local economy. So we see this as a win-win and a way to help create really amazing community opportunities for people who are living here, working here, and wanting to choose this for their long-term place. So one of the awesome things we heard is community gardens are important. And we see that in seniors housing too, where there's lots of people who want to garden and continue to do that as a hobby or as even a food resiliency idea. So we're very fortunate. This is our site next to the high school, just up to the east of us here, where we have an existing community garden already right next door. And we really want to help the Robson Valley Community Services who run that garden and enable them to build more into this seniors housing development. So I think that's some of the really cool things about what you already have is a community and a group of people who like to focus on that building that neighborliness and opportunities amongst each other and take advantage of the site, which is also in this forest, and having the hopes that we can create a site plan that doesn't have to mow everything down and work with a flat site, but take ideas from all of the natural elements, the landscape elements. We went to Cranberry Marsh yesterday, probably at the very height of mosquito biting time at 7 at night. So we know that this place has amazing shrubs and flat. Shauna was our edibles guide. I think every 10 steps she stopped to taste blueberries and all sorts of. Yeah, that was an amazing walk. And I don't think I have any blood left in me from all the mosquito bites, but it was phenomenal to think that our site plan for the seniors housing can have many of those edible kind of landscape ideas as possible. Like, they just grow wild here. So how do we develop that is sort of with your help in prioritizing where certain buildings go on site, how the roads should work, how the clusters of the buildings should be for housing, amenity spaces, multi-purpose rooms, and so forth. We're going to ask you to help us think about the look and feel of these buildings. Like I said earlier, we know that this place really likes wood buildings and the warmth of the sort of post and beam or timber frame ideas or log cabins. We've seen a lot of examples around town of wood being used very creatively. And we'd like to sort of build on that idea, especially as a multi-season place. People come here in the winter as well as the summer and play up the idea that this is a four-season type of neighborhood and community and have the livability that's comfortable both when it's very cold as well as it's very warm. So getting some ideas about the look and feel, everything from the colors to the textures is what we're going to ask you to do in the next few minutes. And before we do all that, I just wanted to outline this massive wish list of all the things we heard from the Senior Citizens Housing Society of what they'd like to do. And we need to start to prioritize what happens in the first phase versus what happens in the next until we build this vibrant community. So we've heard everything from creating those community gardens to outdoor covered walkways. So for people who have mobility challenges, they're able to still enjoy the walk in the woods or the walk in a winter landscape. And creating places that, again, really enable that social gathering and that space. So having dining rooms or multi-purpose rooms to be able to have birthdays or celebrations, inviting their families to come in to, even in a pandemic kind of situation, understanding what it means to be able to be healthy and safe and hygienic in a new way. So we have a really amazing opportunity to reinvent what seniors housing is post-pandemic. So as many of you probably heard in the news, the long-term care places have been hit hard. And we want to ensure we don't do the things that enable the virus or whatever contagion to spread. So we want to be able to create opportunities for way more fresh air through operable windows and natural ventilation. We want to make sure places have really amazing daylight and so people can feel like they're almost outside when they're inside. So even some of the ideas that are on the back wall from the earlier session today spoke to a lot of those very things. So we're happy to see people are already wanting to see that happen. We also know there's a lot of things that make seniors living even more humane and friendly, including ideas like a hospice room or a space so people can live out their last little bit in a place that isn't very institutional or sterile and can feel at peace. And maybe that's also doubles as a meditation room, or how we look at providing services and opportunities for people who need laundry or things that stimulate them physically as well as mentally. So we're wanting to work through all of those ideas with you today, including ensuring the building's energy efficient and built to a high sustainability standard. So our team has been fortunate to work on net zero energy projects and something called carbon neutral projects, where buildings don't contribute any carbon dioxide through their material or their emissions. So we would love to bring in some of those ideas to this project, and we're happy to work in BC, where believe it or not, the energy code and the building codes are the best in the country. So BC has set the standard for buildings to really be top of the line, and that's a BC housing requirement that we know. Our team has been working on the Valemount Affordable Rental Society project on Juniper and Gordon. So we have had some really fun opportunities to even work in your community already. So we're happy to bring some of those ideas to this project too. Cool. Any questions or comments so far? All good, and you're all with me? It's getting a little warm in here, but we'll get you moving in a second. So this is on your table on 11 by 17 sheet. It's our first inkling of the program of all the wish list items and then some for the development. And this is sort of our first inkling of how things can work their way through, but this is if it was built completely all together. What we have to do going forward is break this down into phases and into bite-sized, budget-friendly chunks. So really, our job is to get your input on how best to do that. And so we're gonna start with a couple of exercises this afternoon for you to help us determine the way we'll manage to work through some of those ideas. Cool. Any thing I forgot? So, I think so. Great. So what I'd like you to do for the first exercise, on your tables is you have a stack of architecturally related magazines. We're gonna ask you to do sort of a vision board with us. So you have scissors, you have glue sticks, you have tape. We'd like you to work with your table mates and pick out from those magazines imagery that you really enjoy or want to see in the new seniors development, whether they're landscape elements or furniture elements or colors or textures or different rooms that speak to what can be part of our design. And that helps us really understand sort of that look and feel, or that desire to have a certain space or certain things that maybe we haven't thought of yet. So we're gonna take about 15 minutes to do that exercise, and then we're gonna report each table back to the room with your ideas.
What we did was we just took some of the pictures from the watch-out. So we tried to do like kitchen, seating area, resident, like that. But what I really wanted to talk about was the hospice room and how a hospice room just by itself is very, very cold, and you have a person who's in the hospice bed and probably unable to get up from that bed, and you have family members all standing around looking down on this person, and it can go on for days and days. So what we think it would be the best solution, or what we would like to see, is that we have a hospice room, a sitting room, adjoining it with an open doorway so it goes back, it flows, the flow goes back and forth, a nice big bathroom with a walk-in shower, etc., for family members to use at their leisure. And what else do we have here?
A little napping area.
Oh, a napping area for the family members so that they can provide ongoing support to the person in the bed. And then over here, we added a little add to it. We don't want it looking like the McBride Hospital.
Thank you. Great ideas. Definitely not going to look like the McBride Hospital.
The furniture must be furniture that a senior can get up and out of. So not too cushiony and not too hard, but something that they can actually push up. It's going to be tall enough, so something that's going to be adaptable.
That's basically it. Lots of lights and, you know.
I really like angles, things that aren't straight. So they can be used as in walkways with curved surfaces, use a curved surface. Angles, natural materials, garden area, simple design. Here's something here with post, it's kind of like post and beam, but very simple, not straightforward. Use of light, to be able to play on what you've got.
So the energy efficiency is the sunlight. The winter sun comes into the structure, and the summer sun has shade over, and there's a thermal mass to absorb the heat from the sun, and lots of natural ventilation and daylighting.
So once again, light, and then enough greenery around the windows and the light so you kind of have that outdoor feeling no matter what. And greenery inside, some simple things. Easy maintain, some curves and some color for some visual interest. Beige is just...
No beige. Don't worry, Tara does not like beige.
And so we wanted lots of fresh air, and so, but still the wood. So we wanted to show that the wood was the main feature of the, but round. My dad used to live in Sherwood Park in a round seniors complex, 3-story. It was excellent. It was very nice. But still at the same time, the doors would be metal, so that it, like maintenance free and whatever. And then for inside, you have different type of where you can sit and still have the chairs comfortable, so that there's a lot of space. Outside for the community garden, kind of making it so that they can do things. Common room type thing in the bedroom. 2 beds if it's, you know, for singles or for a 1 or 2 bedroom. Outdoor patio. And that was an outdoor spacious look that we were looking for.
An open concept, lots of glass, single story, the use of warm colors in the interior, the feeling of living outdoors while being inside, and lots and lots of light. We also thought about the possibility of a living wall for air quality. We would like to have an outdoor space that pulls you out to use it, so that you're actually, but one that's usable. And of course, we did get to the sound barrier along the railway tracks. A couple of different options for that. You know, we couldn't find anything to be building it on rubber, but but we're thinking the sound barrier is a good consideration.
So, we have a little bit of time with you to do the last exercise. We have cut out a whole bunch of program spaces, if I may, in this little Ziploc bag. These are the program elements that kind of match this. If I could get you to flip over the site plan that's on your table, and our next exercise, actually the big piece of paper, if you flip it over, we'd like you to do a space adjacency exercise with us. So we'd like you to rearrange all of these program spaces in what order or what space should be adjacent to another space. So in there, we have 2-bedroom units, 1-bedroom units, dining spaces, a whole pile of different amenity spaces down to like all of the prosaic storage and washrooms. So basically, we need your help to understand how to lay out the entire facility so we can make sense of what is important to be next to the space that we have available. So again, we're gonna use glue sticks to glue them down to the table and then get you to share some of your ideas of how you see this building working for us. Yeah, and they're all color-coded, and basically if you can help us with that space planning, that'll help us take this further faster.
With all those resident storage rooms. All that together.
Okay, but these should go, these need to go with...
Okay, what do we got here?
That I hear, you got your own quiet space, but you also have, others around, so that...
Oh, cool. Well, it would be a shame in a... Brother and sister trying to work.
Storage spaces sort of distributed so they'd be accessible to each one of the groupings of the suites. Without really knowing where access is going to come, we just kind of assumed it would be from the, so let's call this south or whatever. So there's your receiving areas, your offices, public restrooms, stuff like that.
There wasn't enough time. Did you all notice that? That really we couldn't, to dialogue and actually compile our own ideas. We were squeezed in time. So some of the ideas we had from our senior, who is living in a similar situation, is it's good to mix like couples and singles in the same area. You don't want, there's an advantage of having a mix there. We wanted some storage area with the units. We wanted the hospice and the spiritual room in a quiet space, kind of. We had thought about putting it with a green space, because there'd be advantages to that, but then we realized that the greenhouse and the community garden are going to have people coming and going, so they should be in a different space than there's a privacy aspect to this that we wanted to uphold.
And kind of having your centralized dining, all the services, all that kind of stuff in the middle, and then the mixed accommodation around the perimeter. One thing I wanted to mention too is, what about the idea of sometimes one bedroom isn't big enough Sometimes 2 is too big or expensive. So like coming up with something that, so the folks have a little bit of extra room, maybe to put that computer or desk or stuff that they're still using, right? Possibly, you know, moving to a place where they've just downsized and they're not quite willing to get rid of everything, just quite yet. You know, but there again, back to the cost of a 2-bedroom, and that really, you know, not practical for them.
The idea was to have the 2-bedroom and 1-bedrooms around, and then in the center, when you first came in, is to have the Cova outdoor, because that's happened now, the office, and then the dining room and all the lounge and anything to do with the multiple purpose room. And then over on one area would be anything to do with the hospice, to do with with the spiritual room, so it's quiet type thing. And then on the left would be the workshops, the games room, exercise, anything. And the community garden shouldn't be there, but I stuck it in that corner. But actually it would be somewhere where it's spacious and would be out, so that there would be lots of light and for them to go. And that's it.
Thank you.
Okay, so our idea here was, this is Ash Street. We wanted these houses with a view over to Monashee. These ones will be looking back at McCurdy. These ones will be looking out at the canoe. This is kind of our last phase idea. We didn't really like the idea of the housing back there beside the train tracks. So I'm not sure that we're happy with that part of it, but phase 1 we figured would be this, all single, just single bedroom. We weren't sure about the 2-bedroom idea either, just how exactly that worked, like why we would need 2 bedrooms, but that could be explained to me later, I guess. And this would be phase 2, still with the single bedroom and having the guest suite attached as well. So if you had somebody, company or come, whatever, you'd have a spot. Hospice room and the spiritual room close by as well. And then all the other stuff could be pasted in there however you felt you wanted it. It's kind of hard to, there's so many things there, it's really hard to say, but we kind of had them in there, and the greenhouse was situated kind of close to the community garden.
Okay, someone pointed out that curves are very expensive. They change quickly. So the concept is that the suites would be able to benefit from them, each other, less heating so that they're attached, and the ability to try and create more and more space in which you can have it covered. I would really love to see where there would be people that could step out the door without having to bundle up during the wintertime and still enjoy the space. It'd be congregating your garden space, kitchen, dining room, making areas common for people. What I'd really like to see more than anything is being able to have covered area in which you don't have to step outside.
Okay, we were trying to keep with that hub idea. And so there's got to be a main and kind of area office space in the middle. We would think, if there's a first and a second level, then we still need to have someone kind of watching over things, that sort of thing. So we wanted to put all the fun activities on one leg of the hub, and then we wanted to put the more clinical type stuff on another side of the hub, as well as where the ambulance comes and goes. Mix it up again. I heard someone earlier say, you know, have some 2-bedroom suites with the 1-bedroom, but you see here and another spot down here, I believe, we have 2 rooms together, and so they would just be back to back, much like the old hotel rooms. So if you had to isolate one of a couple, or if you wanted to be close to your spouse, but that person wasn't able to live in that space, then maybe you could do this rather than going over to the hospice. So there would be 2 areas for that, possibly. And then the dining and the lounge. So all of the kitchen and stuff kind of in the main area and then just moving outward.
Your comments or ideas for us to gather so we can take back to design this? As you can see behind you, almost the whole wall of both are plastered with amazing thoughts. It's going to be developed in phases. So the very first phase is likely independent, kind of almost regular types of housing units. And then over time, we add more supportive types of housing. So eventually creating assisted living and or long-term care types of units. So it kind of unfolds over the next decade based on the community's needs with independent living and then building on additional aspects with those in mind. So this is why we have to do a master plan, is to set all of that road, sidewalk, fire, water, all of that infrastructure first, and then we build into that plan. So that's why we have to think with the end in mind. What will this be after a decade or 2 decades even? And then put in place all of the things we have to ensure that makes it workable.
While we are saying independent living, I'm seeing it slightly differently than how Shifra's talked about it. Partly, Diane, what you're talking about, assisted living, supportive living. So we're seeing that BC housing funds independent housing, but having common areas for meals would be part of this, but the funding for it, this is how I'm seeing it. It's a matter of, finding the grants to work with BC housing funding. So having meals and services in the building for independent housing, I'm seeing it as part of phase 1. It's just the money comes from different places. And why I say this is because our seniors, the surveys have said 70% of them want services. They want independent units, but want services and meals. And so we already have completely independent housing, just creating more of the same, just more pretty looking. I'm not sure if it meets the functional needs that seniors are looking for. So yeah, trying to see how we create those common spaces that give the services as well is almost important to look at as we're working with the independent units with BC Housing and seeing what other funding will allow creating those common spaces for more services. So
this has been really amazing for generating ideas and feedback. And like I mentioned, we're at the very, very beginning. These are just the first stabs at ideas. And we like to think of it as funneling down. So we collect a whole bunch of ideas and we distill those ideas into an actual architectural design. And our hope is to come back to this community, hopefully in September, with sort of that more defined idea of what it could be in those multiple phases, and then reach out again to many of you to see how we're doing.